Welcome to another episode of the Flatlander Fit Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Schultz, and today I have a good friend of mine, Nick Bechtold. He's a PT in Montana, and he works with the Mountain Tough guys. You also have your own clinic, which is Mountain Physio. Is that right?
It's Movement Physio.
Movement Physio. Sorry, that's my bad on that.
All right.
Thanks for joining me, Nick.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, so just like you said, I'm one of the coaches here at Mountain Tough, help kind of with the rehab side of their programming. But then my wife and I also operate a small cash-based clinic located inside of Mountain Tough, and then we have a separate location inside of a CrossFit gym just a few minutes from here. So really kind of involved in the active population and kind of everything from seeing people that are injured all the way to kind of getting back to performing at high levels. So kind of the whole spectrum in between.
Awesome. So with that, like what I would like to ask you is, give me your take on what you see, because of being on both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
You get to see people that come in for rehab, but also, especially with Mountain Tough and with your other gym facilities, you're working on people with conditions. So like, what do you tell people like to motivate them to take care of themselves and start working on themselves rather than saying getting hurt and then coming back to see you, because then they're kind of chasing their goals rather than, kind of staying with them or ahead of them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of it is kind of talking to people about where they're kind of at along that continuum. If someone's just getting started working out, they're probably not going to be ready for that high level stuff. Right. And so it's preparing them, getting them more resilient and ready for those higher level things. And it's kind of the same side of the coin, even with rehab patients. Like the way I look at that is they come into us with an injury, which essentially kind of lowers their overall resilience. So right. In a way, they're kind of back a little bit lower, almost as if they're kind of getting started again. So they need to reestablish that resilience, kind of build up their tissues, and then gradually kind of progress in that spectrum towards that performance side of things. So we've kind of talked about this. I'm sure you've seen that graphic. I think in the E3 rehab guys have shared this, and there's kind of this continuum, this graph they have, and on one end is rehab and on one end is training and performance. And they kind of have this split that goes down the middle. So like on the rehab side, it's very focused more on rehab. And as you progress in that continuum towards training, it's less on the rehab, more on that performance. So I kind of visualize like, where is somebody at on that continuum? I mean, if someone comes in a very like acute injury, they're going to be further down the line on that rehab side. If someone comes in and they're a high level athlete, maybe they need a tweak to their tweak to their programming, tweak to their volume, or they're just kind of dinged up a little bit. Maybe they're a little bit lower down where they need a little bit of that rehab, but they still need some of that performance. So we kind of have to cater our treatment, our program to where they're at in that. Like, are they ready for that intensity? Can we throw some of that at them while still building up the tissues, or do they need to really build that base before we're even able to do that? So that's kind of how I think about that.
That's actually a really good, interesting point, because like you said, trying to find that happy medium of like how much that intensity you can kind of push up if it's somebody who's just kind of dinged up. So I'm going to ask your take on this. If you've had people in the gym or you've worked with Mountain Top, they get injured. Have you seen their recovery time a lot quicker because of the strength that's been made, because of the effort that they've put in that work before?
Yeah, definitely. I think people that have that background of just being fit, being active, tend to recover a lot better. And I think a lot of that goes back to just their tissues overall are a little bit healthier. They have a better lifestyle, maybe better habits that help them facilitate that. Right. You've probably seen that as well. I mean, I always think about low back pain as a great example, but someone that's in the gym working out, kind of tweaks their back a little bit. Maybe it doesn't feel too good. They more than likely just need to modify things for a couple of weeks, maybe do a little bit of, classic rehab, and then they're kind of back to where they're at, or maybe they just need to kind of ease back into things. Whereas somebody that comes off of the couch with a low back injury, maybe somebody that's very sedentary before, that can be a much longer length of their rehab, because not only are you trying to help reduce the pain, but now you're trying to get them to establish some of these habits that get them to be healthy again. So it's a much bigger ask of those people. So that's why I always encourage people, probably the same for you, when they're done with rehab, it's not like they're done doing this stuff. Like, I think you need to establish some sort of active lifestyle going forward that's going to help prevent those injuries.
I think that's a good point. That is one thing that I've seen too. We get the luxury, we see people probably for a very long period of time just in the setting that I'm at. But when they start making those changes, they get really excited, like what's going to be the next step. And even though maybe like I don't see them at the gym afterwards, a lot of
Yeah.
times I will ask them like, well, what facility are you going to go to?
Yeah.
I'll just take a little bit of time out of my schedule, go to the facility, see what the facility's got, and then we start having a couple of sessions on how are we going to transition
Oh yeah.
them so they're successful, like you said, building those lifestyles, but then empowering them to kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And it's interesting that how our practice has kind of changed since we started. So we've had our own practice for about 3 years now.
Okay.
And we get people that will come to us for rehab, and they like how they feel when they're done. So like, let's say they're out of pain, they're like, man, I feel pretty good. Do we have to stop working together? And we have the option now, since we're not in the insurance model, that we can say like, yes, if you want to continue, we've got options available for you if you want to work more on the performance side of things. So I think that's really fun too, where like my wife especially, she's got several clients that she sees that are women in their 30s to 50s that have never really had like a good strength training routine. And now they've kind of addressed all of these little ailments that they've had for several years, and they're feeling strong, feeling confident. They're like, well, I don't want to stop this, and I want your guidance to do that. So, you know, that the model changes a little bit. Like when they get to that point, we're going to see them less often, maybe do some programming for them in the background. But a lot of that is super powerful for people, because now they're out of pain and you're helping them create these lifestyles, like teaching them how to move better. A lot of people come to us because they're not confident doing squats, doing deadlifts, but they want to be able to do that. You know, I think that's a lot of what we see on social media and the news, which is great. Like women being told they need to strength train, but a lot of them still being kind of fearful. Like, I've never been taught how to do that. So I think that's a cool niche that we've kind of fallen into, where, all right, let's use some of the stuff to get you out of pain, but then like, what's your next goal? Like, now that you're out of pain, like, what can you do? So I think that's a really fun thing to be able to do. And it kind of goes hand in hand with Mountain Tough a little bit. Like, not everybody that we see is appropriate to shift into the Mountain Tough side of things, but there definitely is people that when we're done, we're like, hey, I think you'd be a really good option to check out this program and app. If you're somebody that likes working out at home and you just have you don't have much equipment, like let's get you set up with the app, and you can check out these workouts, and then we can kind of monitor your progress as you do that.
Yeah, you know what? You touched on a lot of really good things there. I'm going to back up one. So with your guys' facility, and as you've kind of transitioned out, and you've got people that you're working with that had been patients, and now they're basically gym members, right? But then you also have patients coming in, and I don't think you can get a better, I would say, maybe better, not say marketing, but just promotion for your program than when you have like an old patient encouraging that new patient, because now that new patient is seeing what that old patient is doing.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's super powerful, and we're not really talking business strategy or anything here necessarily, but those are the people that have the most powerful transformations too. So those are the people that write those glowing Google reviews for us, that if someone's checking out your practice online and they see something like that, they're like, I gotta check these people out. And we've had a lot of, now that we're more established, we've had people that have found us through Google and read through the reviews, checked out the website. They're like, I like what these guys have going on. It's a little bit of a different approach. So they kind of seek us out that way. And that's been huge.
And then the other thing I want to touch on was like, same thing with Mountain Tough. I've used their workouts, worked out with you guys. And one of the things that's been really cool on how that's evolved is that so many different programs to fit people that maybe might not feel comfortable going to the gym. And so there's actually something there for them to follow. They've got a great community when it comes to just the online stuff. So, I mean, that's another huge thing, just coming off of like rehab, or again, encouraging somebody to maybe take that first step in training before they get hurt by using that as well.
Exactly. And that's been a huge evolution too, like helping them with program design. And I do one of the programs in the app as well, is, you know, Mountain Tough kind of, if those of you guys that are familiar with it, is very founded on mental toughness, very challenging workouts in order to facilitate really powerful life change. So that's kind of at the basis of it. But that being said, not everybody is ready for those super demanding, really long, really high intensity workouts. So over the years, Mountain Tough has shifted to give people sort of a lane to get there. And I think that's been a huge progression. So I get a lot of contact emails from people that will write into Mountain Tough, and they'll kick some to me about like, where should I start? I'm coming off an injury. What program is right for me? And we've got a lot of good paths in that app. Like the on-ramp and the foundation series, where people, basically on-ramp is 2 weeks, 3 days a week. Foundation is, I think, 5 days a week, but it's 4 weeks. And it's really lower intensity, lower demand programs to help get people there. So
Yep.
a lot of times people that are recovering from injury, or if they're kind of new to working out and they're like, I like you guys' programs. I really want to be able to do like the preseason prep 2.0 is one of the harder programs, really demanding for those people that want to prepare for the hunt. So not everybody's ready for that. And if somebody comes into the app and they go into that and they start day one and they're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, I can't do this. And then they never sign into the app again. Well, that's not going to be good for them. It's not going to be good for Mountain Tough. So how do we steer those people and help them find where they need to be with the goal of like, all right, you're starting here. Let's get you through this progression and ultimately to those programs. Cause then you're really going to see that change.
Well, and I think that's like the evolution of Mountain Tough, right?
Yeah.
And you guys are like listening to people, having yourself on board with your PT experience. You are really helping develop the right program. And like you said, giving so many different lanes or choices, because like you said, preseason is pretty tough, but you look in, you've got like, there's just a lot of different programs in there, and they do a good job at helping build stuff up, which is, you know, what we want to do is help progressively get people stronger. They can look back and see where they started and now where they're at now. You know?
And I think of that a lot, even with the clients that I have too, is like with someone that comes into me, all right, what have you been doing? What do you want to do? And where do you need to start? Like some people we work with a lot of CrossFit athletes too. So they're doing very demanding stuff. So, you know, sometimes they need to be challenged in different ways, or they need us to scale things back a little bit. So the demands are a little different. Sometimes those people are doing so much that you need to pull them back a little bit and rebuild, versus somebody who's fresh. It's like, all right, we got to push the intensity a little bit. Like maybe you have low back pain because you're just not active. Like you're not that active during the day.
So here's a question I was going to ask you. I mean, I know what my answer is that what would be your preferred, somebody who's doing too much and you got to pull back on the reins, or somebody that you're trying to motivate when it comes to either the rehab, you know, especially with rehab?
That's a great question. I would say that I typically would prefer somebody who's already doing a lot that we need to pull back because they've already got good habits, which is great, because it's like, all right, you know, Ice Physio has a great saying. I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's like they would rather have a problem of activity versus a problem of like being sedentary. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather have you're doing CrossFit or you're doing Mountain Tough and you banged up your shoulder, but you love to work out. You're super active. Great. Let's just deal with that, versus somebody who comes in and they hate exercising. They don't know how to, it doesn't feel good. So like it's a bigger ask. But on the flip side, if you get that person to develop those habits, that's a huge win too.
That is huge. Yep.
So there's a little bit of both. I still think I would rather see somebody that's already really active and we just need to like, all right, let's get you on the right track. Because they have those habits in place, but you can get big wins on either side.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, that's my preferred too. But when you do get that person who does not like to work out a lot or doesn't work out at all, and you see that light bulb come on or that switch flip, and then they're just like, they're almost like craving more. And you know, then they forget about like, they're not fragile. They can move. They can move with confidence. And then, I mean, really like the sky's the limit. And those are the people that are like, what's my next step when I get out of here? You know, gym, Mountain Tough. Do I hire a trainer? Do you program? I mean, there's a lot of great things. So there is a big win when it comes from that.
Yeah. I think those are great. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it too, but the people that, you know, quote unquote, drink the Kool-Aid after they kind of get a feel for what it's like to be strong. And it's like, what's the next goal? And all of a sudden they're running marathons and doing stuff like that. I think that's super cool to see, because then it has a big trickle down effect. I mean, I have a young daughter now, so she's 15 months old. So now I get to see like the actions that we do, how it influences her. So I think that being active to me has such a bigger impact than just yourself, like the people around you, your family, your friends, who you hang out with. Like if you're super active and your group of friends isn't, well, maybe you can pull them to be more active, or you know, maybe you're going to find a group that's more active. I don't know, you know, not saying you should ditch your friends, but you kind of influence the people around you.
Well, ironically, at my age, I'm starting to have other friends that weren't as active, and now we're kind of seeing some, I hate to say it, some mortality stuff. And it's like, I got to get back on track, and encouraging them. And then when you see them make the change, that's huge. But what I think is interesting, like what you had mentioned about like with your daughter, a good friend of mine, he ended up building a gym in the basement. He's a power lifter, but now both his son and daughter are down there playing. And then they see him working out. So then they're on the equipment. So like you said with your daughter, like you are really leading by example of like healthy lifestyle. Exercising is fun. you feel good after it. And I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think, let's see, his son and daughter are 3 and 4 now.
Oh,
So,
nice.
I mean,
Yeah.
so same thing, you know, like your daughter's
Yeah.
growing up around that activity,
Yeah.
and that's going to be the norm for her,
Yeah.
you know, and that's
Which I think is
huge,
so cool
huge.
because I mean, I don't know about you, but when I grew up, we played sports.
Absolutely.
My parents worked very hard, but back
Yep.
then exercise wasn't really something that people did for fun or for recreation. So it was
No.
just different that
Yep.
we got outside, we did some hunting, did that kind of stuff. But I think it would be cool to see her come up in that environment where exercise is normalized. Like you kind of expect, like, all right, at least most days of the week, you're going to do something. Doesn't have to
Absolutely.
be lifting in the gym, but you're going to go on a bike ride. You're going to go on a little run. You're going to do something active. I think normalizing that will be really cool.
You know, the other thing I was going to say is living in Montana, you do see a lot of people being active,
Oh yeah.
hiking, walking and stuff. And so
Yeah.
the stuff that she sees in the gym, she also sees like with you guys going, if you're going for walks,
Yeah.
doing a small hike, all of that stuff. And so, like you said, it's doing something every day being active.
Yeah.
And I mean, I look at it as like you get to take in an amazing day, even a cold day, you're still getting a workout in. The mountains are beautiful. And I mean, just being active, you just overall feel
Yeah.
better. And I don't think anybody will contest that.
No. Yeah. And I mean, we live in a great place for it. So it's kind of hard not to be active here. In
Yeah.
a way, it can be almost competitive. Like once you feel like you've done
Right.
something impressive, there's always somebody that's done something else. But it's cool. I
Yes.
mean, everybody here is so active that I mean, anybody you talk to has some sort of recreation. A lot of people getting out fishing, hiking,
Yep.
skiing is huge here. So there's a lot of options for things to do. So we're definitely blessed in that way.
We touched on this on another episode with a guest, isn't it? So, and I think this is a great example of what you just said is like, ironically, the community encourages people.
Oh
So
yeah.
there is that support. Like maybe you said somebody did something, maybe they hiked this mountain in a certain amount of time. You're like, well, I can beat that, I think.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. And it's kind of like that constant push, but in a friendly way. And I mean, having that type of inspiration is so important too.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. I
know?
think community is huge. I was always the type, coming out of college that I would work out, like go to the gym. I was fine working out by myself. It was like, I'm
Yep.
going to write my own programs, do that thing. And I enjoyed it. But then I started going to group classes and I thought I mean, it was a big game changer because I found that I pushed myself harder those
Yep.
days where you didn't feel like going, as long as you showed up and stayed accountable and just, it didn't matter what you did, just show up, do the workout wherever you're at. I think that was a real game changer for me because you have people that you're around. It's more fun to work out with people. Again, you hold yourself accountable, maybe push yourself a little harder. So
Yep.
I encourage a lot of people that when they're just getting into exercise, if it's something that's kind of challenging for them to do, I know it can be a little bit more expensive to go to a gym, especially some of the group classes these days, but I think the investment is so worth it because you're going to meet friends, you're going to push yourself
Absolutely.
harder, you're going to have opportunities to do things that you wouldn't typically do. Maybe a group from the gym is going to do like a big long ruck and you get asked to go do it, whereas you
Right.
never would have done that. Or maybe people sign up for a high rocks event and you're like, cool, that sounds hard. Like maybe I'll go do that. But I think those opportunities to challenge yourself are super important. And I encourage people all the time to join a gym or find a community. It doesn't have to be a group class, but find even a small group that you can push yourself with.
That's huge. Like I've always been a person who's worked out by myself. I've got
Yeah.
lots of friends that are, we're kind of competitive or keeping ourselves or
Yeah.
helping keep ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
But when I worked out with you guys at Mountain Top, that was really the first class I'd probably done in like 20 years.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap. And I'm like, this is like the
Yeah.
real deal.
Yeah.
And, everybody was at a different level, but everybody was encouraged to finish it. And just like you said, getting involved in those groups is so important at
Oh
just
yeah.
really bringing the best out of yourself. You might think you've pushed yourself in the gym and now you get in that class setting
Yeah.
or with a few other people, and either you're going to find another gear on that kind of like that gut check
Yeah.
or that fail. And
Yeah.
then you're going to want to come back and like, you know what, I'm going to crank this out. I'm going to
Yeah.
crush this time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you can't beat that at all.
Yeah, I think the mindset behind that is kind of important because it's easy for some people to kind of get sucked into that competition, maybe in a negative way, where maybe they push themselves, hard in a negative way. But I think as long as you go into the attitude of like, all right, as long as everybody's in here, they're pushing themselves for where they're at, they're getting a good workout. Like I think that energy is really addictive for people. Like you don't have to be lifting as much as that guy, but you guys are both putting in the effort, hard workout. You give yourself a little fist bump at the end of the workout. That's always a good feeling.
I think that was probably but I will say this, for me, it was the downside because I was getting ready to leave Montana and I would have loved to have been back to work out again. So I'm going to try to maybe come out for Tough Fest, but if anything, I'm just going to come out to visit and then I'll come and work out with you guys again,
for sure.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fun group. Yeah. We test those workouts every day at noon. It's a new group every single day.
That's pretty awesome, actually, you know? So what do you guys have coming up for your clinic? Anything big or anything in the gym? I mean, we can talk a little bit about Mountain Tough in a second, but like, what do you guys have coming up that you want to talk a little bit about?
In the gym, I mean, it's been a busy season. We're gradually increasing sort of our clients. I think it's just a busy time of the year. We've got a couple little events coming up. Like we'll typically do injury screen events. Sometimes there's like a little wellness expo coming up that is just a good way to get involved in the community and do stuff that way. But we like to do those little events. It's kind of a win-win for both people. It's good marketing for us. It helps people kind of get a taste of what it would be like to work with us. So the injury screen events, especially, we've done those basically at every functional fitness gym here in town. Nice. And those are we usually schedule 20-minute slots for people where they can sign up for that. And usually we encourage people that maybe they've been dealing with something for a while. Maybe they just kind of got a little ache and pain. Maybe you don't need PT, but come and chat with us for 20 minutes. We'll put you through a few tests. And that's a good way for us to see, like, you know, at the end of that, we may recommend that you come and try to see us for PT. Like, this might be an issue that would be beneficial that you work on, or there's been a lot of those. I would say it's probably 50-50 where we just give people a couple exercises and say, this is probably going to get better. Do these things for a while. If it doesn't get better, you know, in 2 to 4 weeks, give us a call and we can take a deeper look at it. So we try to do a lot of that. And it's a great way to get involved in the community. I mean, for anybody out there who is a rehab specialist or anybody that's considering starting their own thing, the best form of marketing, the best way to get involved in your community is just go to these gyms, be around these people. I mean, when we started doing that, we didn't go to the gyms and announce like, hey, we're physical therapists. We want to help you guys. We just kind of went, met people, did the workout, kind of, you know, talk to people a little bit. They would eventually kind of find out we're therapists and then maybe ask a few questions. But I think just trying to create relationships with people is huge. So we're always looking for opportunities to do that in the community.
I think that's huge. And the reason why is, like you said, creating that relationship with people. And as you know, like when you have a patient come in, like that's half of it is like kind of getting to know one another. And then at these wellness screenings, it's not like this pressure of it's an appointment. I don't want, you know, some people are kind of resistive to PT. It's a general conversation. You generally get to know people. And a lot of things come out of just authentic conversation that is helpful both ways, you know?
Yeah. We try not to be overly salesy or pushy or
absolutely.
Like that. Like, it's not going to help our brand or our business if we try to force services on somebody that doesn't need it. So we're of the mindset of like, unless we can really help you, I would rather you try a few of these things and leave feeling like, oh, those guys really helped me. They were looking out for me. And then, you know, 6 months down the road, if something does come up, they're like, oh, I trust those guys. I'm gonna go back and see them. So we try to play the long game with a lot of that stuff. And I think a lot of people sort of feel a little guarded with that type of situation sometimes because they have been sold to and they've been pressured into doing different treatments or different services. So I at the end of the day, I always just know that I don't love to be pressured into certain things. So I don't want to do that to certain people. So yeah, we just really just trying to build trust with people around us. And that's kind of the number one thing.
I think that's why we get into people. I think most of us as becoming therapists is like, we just generally want to help people. It's as simple as that, not trying to pull them in. I mean, how many conversations do you have with people just off to the side and somebody goes, you know, my shoulder kind of bugs me a little bit. And they're like, do you have a stretch? You might show them a stretch. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're feeling better. Or like you might see them at Mountain Tough, like all of a sudden they come back, they're like, man, I'm feeling a ton better. And I mean, it's really just about helping people. And I mean, that's being of service.
Right. Yeah. And there's sort of a balance there. I mean, I've had a lot of those situations. Someone's like, hey, can you just kind of take a quick look at something? And, you know, usually I will do it and just be like, here's kind of what I'm thinking, and just build that trust. And, you know, a lot of times those people, if they didn't need something, then they will refer somebody else to us because they're like, oh yeah, you helped me with this little thing. You know, I got a buddy who's dealing with this. They should come check out what you guys got going on. So I think, it's just a really big service. And I mean, you know, a lot of people say that you kind of have this question of like, if you didn't need money, would you still do the same job that you would be doing? And I think I would in some variation. Obviously,
Absolutely.
maybe not as many hours of the day.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
go out and do a little more outside. But I still think if I didn't get paid to help people, I would still want to do it in some
Absolutely.
capacity. So
Absolutely.
that's why, I mean, I love what we do. I know, any job can get challenging. There's days when a job feels like a job, but most days of the week, I'm, excited to go and help people and really try to go out of my way to see what we can do for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So then, let's see, kind of transitioning a little bit here with
Yeah.
that, into Mountain Tough. What's,
Yeah.
what's new if people are looking into checking out Mountain Tough?
Yeah.
Is there anything, you guys are starting this spring, or is there anything that you can share that might be coming up that might be of interest to people?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. There's pretty exciting things that we just did some planning recently on kind of new things that are coming up. We
okay.
just recently launched the spring training program. So that's
Yep.
kind of what people are doing a lot of now. We have the daily programs, and how familiar you are with those. So we have a minimal gear daily, and then I program and coach most of the gym daily. So that's
Okay.
5 days a week. A new workout expires after 24 hours. So
Yep.
we try to focus those kind of also seasonally on what people are doing. We're about to start one in the gym daily that's called Spring Bear, more focused on like
Okay.
strength and hypertrophy. So
Yep.
that'll be kind of a fun one. The MGDs are doing sort of a Murph prep. So
Okay.
people like to do the Murph workout, so they're kind of preparing for that. And then we kind of started brainstorming some ideas of creating different sort of short-term programs for people based on more kind of challenge based in a way. So, throughout the
Okay.
year, if we're like, all right, it's season starts, September 1st is usually when a lot of archery hunters are going to get started.
Yep.
So maybe a month out from that, let's do a month of some pack workouts just
Yep.
to get you really solid for your pack. So we've got ideas floating around of making some of these sort of mini programs throughout
Okay.
the year that don't stick around forever. So it creates a little bit of that buzz. So like, I got to
Right.
get in there and do it. And just a way to kind of create a little bit more of that fun. Because, a lot of those programs can involve sandbags, med balls, just different objects that people
Yep.
wouldn't typically do for a 16-week program, but maybe for a couple weeks or for 4 weeks, they're gonna get in there and have some fun doing that.
That reminds me, let's see, what was it last year? Or maybe it was 2 years ago, because I actually did it before I went elk hunting.
Yeah.
I think it might have been the pack out one,
Oh, like
but
the heavy pack.
the heavy
Like,
pack, but like the garage door was lowered, so you had to lower because going up and over
oh yeah,
deadfalls, and then you had to like step over stuff, and then you had to
yeah,
step onto stuff.
yeah,
And at first I looked at that and I'm going, holy crap, but then I'm like, you think of the terrain,
yeah.
and like that was a check-in to see, like, if I think I'm ready, that showed me where I was and where I wasn't. And
Oh
that's what
yeah,
I
for
loved about
sure.
that workout.
And that's interesting. We've had some discussions lately because we've gotten some questions, some comments from people about some of the programming. Like, hey guys, this is like very leg heavy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is this too much legs? And I think if you're somebody that comes into it with a very traditional strength training background, or very traditional, like if you're a trainer, you come in and look at some of the programmings, at first glance, you're probably like, this is crazy. Like, this looks like a ton of volume.
Right.
It kind of goes back to what we said, like
Right.
maybe not everybody's ready for that, but the goal of some of those programs is like, it is to get you prepared so that when you get to the mountains, you feel the best you can. And to do that, I mean, we all know we've been on a multi-day hunt, like day 2 and 3, if your legs are tired, it doesn't matter. You still got to get out there and do it. So kind of the
Yep.
intent on some of that stuff is, we're not trying to get you injured, but we are trying to maximize how effective some of these programs are for the backcountry hunter. So
Yep.
we think about a lot of that stuff. Like, how can we make the programs as specific as we can to these? Like, we always want to challenge you a little bit mentally. We want to challenge some of those different planes of movement, like the step overs, the squat unders, those types of things.
Yep.
Like, how can we challenge that so that when you get into that situation, you don't duck under a tree branch and your back seizes up? We want to gradually expose you to some of that stuff so that when you're out there, you don't have to think about your fitness being the limiting factor to your hunt. Like, you want to go out there, some people will say train hard, hunt easy, that type of thing. And so I think that's kind of what we want to do. Hunts are always going to be hard. They're always going to be challenging.
Yep.
And there's multiple reasons for that, but we want to make sure we can try to take some of the physical perspective out of that, or at least prepare you as best we can. I mean, we get feedback from a lot of people that they've had great success doing that. So I think it's just trying to balance that.
I would agree. I think that's a huge challenge when it comes to hunting. But what I wanted to say was that when you guys change up that plane of motion as you're trying to challenge and say, maybe this is really geared towards a hunter, but I would say that the same movements apply to people who just like to hike, because you are going to sidestep up. You're going to have like a like a lateral lunge, and you're going to have a step up. You're going to have to bend down through things. And so not just looking at it as like, say, a pre-hunt exercise. I'm like, if you're a hardcore hiker or really like it, it will prepare you, like you said, because of those different planes of movement, so that you can perform, or you can hike that mountain range or whatever. So it's a very versatile program, I think, in my opinion.
And we get a lot of that crowd as well, that with the niche that we've really chosen to just really focus 100% on is that kind of backcountry Western hunter. That's kind of the niche, and we get some of those adjacent activities involved in it. So I do think we attract a lot of people that just like to move with heavy weight on, and I think it's super important for a lot of that stuff. So yeah, it's great.
Nope, that's awesome. So you guys got a lot of nice stuff coming up. And then
obviously Tough Fest in June. We're kind of putting the finishing touches on the workout that we're doing for that. So we're going to start testing that out here soon. It's going to be a little bit different, but plan on about an hour of being challenged. So they're always a good team workout. So we try to get people in there where you maybe you don't know your teammates. So by the end of it, you're gonna feel like you're best buddies by the end of it.
I wish I would have went last year and I didn't. And I'm kind of, I don't know if there's tickets left. I'll have to check out and see, but
there should be.
What's that?
There should be.
Okay. So if anybody is listening right now, you want a good workout, you got to go to Tough Fest. You guys, like last year, just kind of watching some of the videos, and everybody just, like I said, it's a community thing, and you have teams, but like everybody is encouraging everybody. And that is one of the best things about that, that weekend when it comes to that, so.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, that weekend is all about the community in general. I mean, we want people to come there, we want them to push themselves hard. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When you've got a team with you, the reason we choose those team workouts, because if you're deep in the pain cave during the workout, but your teammate's waiting on you, you're probably going to find a way to keep moving. And by the end of it, everybody is usually feels so accomplished by finishing that, because we all know, like when you do something hard that looks daunting, like if you look at the workout on paper, you're like, this seems like it's going to take us 3 hours, and then you get it done. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we did that. Again, you high five everybody. So I think the community aspect about that is just huge.
That's how I feel when I see bear crawls on round 1, and then all of a sudden again on round 4, I'm like, are you kidding me? Did we just do this? Now I'm going to get my butt kicked by that.
I think the same things when I do the workouts.
Oh man, Nick, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Everybody listening, please check him out on Instagram, and you can find him on Mountain Tough as well. Reach out to him if you have any questions, PT or workout related, and I'll provide all of that information in the description down below. Nick, thanks again. Look forward to seeing you again really soon. All right.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Jason.